basically died when I left the city council. When I was elected to the state senate, took office this year, I introduced 5013, which calls for an end to this practice basically throughout the entire state, but obviously in New York City. Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal introduced my bill in the Assembly. So we're moving ahead now at the state level. And I actually think that the legislation has a better chance of surviving and being enacted into law because the mayor has less influence in Albany than he obviously does down here. Within the last 13 days, for example, there have been 3 serious accidents. On October 23rd, carriage horse Charlie collapses and dies in front of the Midtown North Precinct. Initial results from an autopsy show that he had bad ulcers and he had a broken tooth. He should not have been out on the road. October 28th, a carriage horse spooks on Central Park South and runs east along Central Park, racing into the park without a driver. And eventually, the carriage overturns. On November 4th, the carriage horse, Luke, collapses on 60th Street and Broadway. Now, I'm sure the industry is out there saying this is an anomaly, that within 13 days there have been 3 accidents. Well, this is not an anomaly. This is what's going on all the time. What's been happening as of late, thanks to the good work of all the organizations like Elizabeth Farrell and the Coalition to Ban Carriage Horses, people are now reporting these incidents and accidents more than ever before. These 3 accidents are just an example of it's time to end this practice. And let's talk about Mike Bloomberg and his resistance to ending this industry. He keeps saying, well, this is a huge tourist industry. It provides a lot of revenue for the city of New York. Nothing could be further than the truth. First of all, you can't tell me that a prospective tourist isn't going to come to New York City because we do away with the horse-driven carriages. That's literally absurd and is an insult to everything else that New York City has to offer. And as far as the revenue stream goes, that's also a lot of bull. They don't collect sales tax, so there's no direct revenue. The only revenue that the city may get is from the income of the drivers and the owners if they accurately report what they're making. You have to remember, this is a cash-only industry. And I actually believe, and I've asked the IRS on several occasions, to investigate this industry, because I don't believe they're properly reporting their income. But that's the only revenue source that the city of New York gets. So we can dispute every single argument against ending this industry. But the main thing, there's no way for the horse-driven carriage industry to exist and properly treat and take care of the horses. Let's finally, once and for all, say, we're better than this. We know that cruelty to animals is no longer appropriate. And we, here in New York City, like other cities across the globe, recognize it's time to end this practice. Now let me introduce our next speaker, Elizabeth Farrell from the Coalition to Ban Horse-Driven Carriages in New York City, who's been a really tremendous force on this issue. And I wouldn't be standing here without her help today. So, Elizabeth.
Those both things. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Farrell. Can you hear me? Right, my name is Elizabeth Farrell. It's spelled E-L-I-Z-A-B-E-T-H, F as in Frank, O-R-E-L, and I'm the president of the Coalition to Ban Horse-Driven Carriages. I wanted to concentrate more on some of the details. For example, 6 of the last 7 accidents that have happened since last November were all reported to guess the bottom line is that we believe that the driver, the owner, who had that horse, had to have known, my research, he had to have known that that horse had a broken tooth, and because of that he was probably not eating properly, and it showed, and he was dropping food on the ground, and also he must have had some symptoms, no matter how much they hide them, and something was wrong with that horse. But I'm not a veterinarian, so I'm not saying this as a fact. This is just my suspicion. But I think that everything that's come out of the ASPCA now, along with Pam Corey's retraction, is not believable, and we need to get to the bottom of this. So thank you.
Next person I'd like to recognize and speak is Donnie Moss, who did the film Blinders, which really showed the inhuman practices of this industry.
My name is Donnie Moss, D-O-N-N-Y-M-O-S-S. What we know from speaking to several large animal veterinarians is that there are certain conditions in New York City that simply cannot be corrected in a way that would make the operation of horse-drawn carriages humane or safe. There is no amount of regulation that could prevent a horse from spooking in the congested streets of Midtown Manhattan. And we all know that when a horse spooks and runs against traffic, all hell breaks loose. People get injured, horses get killed, and it's just a matter of time before people get killed. New York City has no pasture where these horses can graze, run, roll, and interact socially with other horses as herd animals do. The bottom line is that these horses have been stripped of the ability to do anything that comes naturally to them. And for what? So that tourists can take a 15-minute carriage ride? Mayor Bloomberg has stated that one of the reasons we need to keep horse and buggies in Midtown Manhattan is because he wonders what would happen to the horses if this industry went away. What does Mayor Bloomberg think is happening to these horses now? This bill to ban horse-drawn carriages would stop the cycle of slaughter because it wouldn't bring dozens of new horses into the city each year who will eventually get shipped off to slaughter. Christine Quinn has killed all local efforts legislatively